Hey, it's Sean from Charlesworth Dynamics. This is an overview of the Neutrix connectors used for the Afterlife Proton Pack hose and for the wand. And we're just going to talk about how they work and how they get installed and how they come apart, etc. These are the two that I will have in my shop. This is the female end right here. This is the male end, and that's due to the connectors that are inside, not the outer ones. And they were originally used for power connectors for film and TV and audio use. This is the original version, which they do not sell anymore. If you look up this model number, what you will get is something that looks very similar, but it'll have a silver button with a different shape to it. So the original versions, which we have here and we're using the film, are kind of hard to find. This one will need painted silver in order to match what was in the film, but this goes in the split loom hose end, and it pretty much just gets put into the split loom, black electrical tape put around it, and it's painted silver, and it's good to go. It's pretty much exactly this. The other end, which goes in the wand, this is not what was used in the film. This was the one used in the film. This is a panel mount version. This is the cable version. I do not sell or carry the panel mount. I'm only doing the cable version, and I'll explain why, and I think you'll agree that this is a better option over this. So we will talk about that. But let's talk about the split loom hose end first and how you deal with this. So the way these come apart, you just screw off the cap. It's kind of a ratchet fit, so it's a little tough to unscrew. That's normal. One thing to note about both of these connectors is that the original version has this safe latching spring that's down inside here. And what that does is once you screw this together, it locks it and makes it really, really impossible to get back apart. You have to basically jam a screwdriver in here to release it while you're unscrewing it, and it just makes it a giant pain in the butt. And for what we're doing, we do not need that level of safety or security, so I've removed them from all of these connectors because they were just creating confusion and making these really hard to service. So you just unscrew the cap, you're good. This is the cable grip, which grips the cable that you might feed through it, and that comes out, and you'll notice that it's keyed, that you have to line up the key with the appropriate slot on the inside to assemble it. And then the connectors, you just push them out like so. You know, it says 3 connections. So if you have a setup that needs to go to the pack that is 3 or less wires, you could actually just wire them to this and use these as they were originally intended as connectors. The problem you're going to run into is most likely you either have more than 3 wires or you have like a ribbon cable or something like that, which means that we have a problem where you cannot run the wires through this now. But we need this in order to mate with the other side. So if that's the case, if you need to feed more than 3 wires through, or a ribbon cable or whatever, we're gonna break it. We're gonna pry off this cap. We're gonna just put a screwdriver here, and it's glued on. You're gonna manhandle it off. You're gonna get all these broken pieces. So here's the cap that I pried off of another one, and then you can pull out or push out all the connectors that are inside there, and we're just not going to use these at all anymore. Now there's no going back. Once you do this, it's the connectors are dead. So just be aware of that if you go that route. So I'm going to move over to the one that I did gut here. So you can kind of see through it. Now you could go the additional mile of also cutting out this interior thing to make this completely open inside. You don't need this inside part. You just need the outside part with the keys. So you could do that as well with like a Dremel or cutters or whatever. So that is an option if you need different wires to go through. And then basically reassembly there is a key on this. You just have to match it up with the inside. It's a little tight because it has an O-ring on it. You'll put the gripper back in. So and you need the gripper in order to keep the spacing proper on this end. And then you're going to screw it back together. Then it goes in the split loom, black electrical tape around it, and you're pretty much done with that side. So let's move to the male end, right? Okay, the reason I'm using the cable connector versus what was actually used in the film, which is the panel connector. So in the film, this got glued in. They ground down, this got glued in. They ground down the edges so it doesn't stick past this, and then it has a bunch of tape on it as well, and it works fine. But it's not as pretty. It's harder to grind these. It's not that hard to grind these down, but if you get in a situation where you can't use just the 3 connectors, you need a pass through for your own cabling, then this becomes a much harder piece to deal with. You gotta cut off and grind out all these things which are part of the molded body, and it's a lot more difficult than dealing with the cable one. And I'll show you why. So panel mount cable. The cable one comes apart just like the other end. It has a grip just like the other end. And then the contacts, you just reach up in here. It's a little stabby, or you could use a screwdriver to push these out, but you basically just push these out. Like so. So, if you need a pass-through, that's it, you're done. You don't need any of this other stuff. You can literally just install it like this, and you have what you need. You have the receptacle for this to snap into, and you have a complete pass-through. This is a lot easier than trying to gut this guy. Now, things you do need to do for this is you need to get it looking like this version, where I have cut off the latch and ground down the nub so that it fits inside the tubing, right? So I have pretty standard wand tubing here. This is 1 1/4 inch outer diameter, 1.12 inner diameter, which makes it a 0.065 inch wall. All right, so if you're in this ballpark, you should be good. But you basically have to grind everything down so that this will fit inside of it. All right, so what I do is I manhandle and I use a hammer to just break off this latch. A spring will come flying out. That's fine. It doesn't matter how mangled that gets because we're going to cut it all off anyway. Once that's off, I have a little Japanese saw, but a hacksaw or whatever, and I just pretty much saw this off as much as possible flush. And then we're going to do a little Dremel work where we grind this down a little bit more, take down the edges, and you just keep doing that. You just keep doing that until it test fits okay. It can be loose and sloppy, that's all right, as long as it fits in and you can center it. With the kit, when you buy one of these, I supply an O-ring that you put on, just somewhere on the end, doesn't matter. And that helps to keep this in place. So you want about 1/4 inch sticking out, like so, because then it matches what's sticking out on the panel mount version. It looks nice and neat that way. The O-ring's keeping it centered, and you've got it good as far as position. Now, you could glue it in. That's permanent, and I don't like that. I like being able to work on things if I need to. But if you're just doing like it as a cable pass through, and you're only using the bottom portion here, that's okay. You could glue it into place, and it's not a big deal. But if you want to keep your options open, you could screw it in place, which is what I'm doing, and I provide a little screw with the kit in order to do that. And what I've done here is I've measured 1 1/4 inches back. I've drilled a 1/8 inch hole, and I've countersunk it. So if you have a countersink, that is nice because then you'll have a nice flush install. If my calculations are correct, this will get hidden underneath the hand grip. So you can take the hand grip off in order to access this. So we're going to put this in. I just happen to use the area that I ground off. Push it in till it's sticking out 1/4 inch. We drill a 1/16 inch pilot hole. Make sure it's 1/16 smaller so that the threads will bite into it. And then we screw this in. And we have a nice, secure, centered mount that I think is a better option over the panel mount version. But I think between all these options, you'll get screen accurate once you paint this silver. You can run 3 wires actually wired and use these as connectors, or you gut them and you run whatever wires you want through. And you can either glue this in place or use the screw in option. And the screws and the O-ring are included when you buy the male adapter. So that is an overview of the connectors for the Afterlife Proton pack. Feel free to send me any questions you may have, and good luck.